Hello and welcome to the HSBC Sevens World Series dates by DrivingMaul. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, and thank you for joining me. So, last week, World Rugby announced the HSBC World Sevens Series dates for 2017 and 2018. Well, actually, to be more precise, they announced the men's dates. They didn't include the women's dates. So, that's a bit disappointing because we'd like to see the women's series growing as well and having more dates in it. But let's talk about the men's series first, and then we'll talk about the ladies' series afterwards. So this year or this season, what are we looking at? We're looking at kicks off at the beginning of December, and the way this series works is they pair tournaments off. So you have 2 tournaments in 2 weekends. A bit of a gap, and then another 2 tournaments in 2 weekends, and so forth. The locations this year look to be pretty much the same as last year, with Dubai and Cape Town kicking things off at the beginning of December. Then we wait until the end of January for Sydney and Hamilton. We then, in March, go across to Las Vegas and Vancouver, so the USA and Canada. We then have the big one of the season, Hong Kong. Now, because the Commonwealth Games is happening in between on the Gold Coast in Australia, that will then go to the Commonwealth Games before heading back to Singapore. So there you've got a 3-weekend group of games. Sorry, I think it's three weekends over 4 weeks, 4 weekends of games there. And then we finish off with Paris and London at the end of the series, all leading up to the Rugby World Cup Sevens in San Francisco on the 20th and 22nd of July. So this is one of the longer seasons. We've got the same number of World Sevens Series stops, but we have 2 extra stops in the 4th place at the Commonwealth Games and the Rugby World Cup. Now, clearly, not all the teams play in the Commonwealth Games, such as the USA, for example, but teams like England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, Australia, New Zealand, Samoa, I think, are there as well. All Tonga, all go to the Commonwealth Games. I'm not sure if Fiji is allowed in. I think it's something about military dictatorships and stuff. But hey, let's not get into politics here. But I say it's a longer season for those 7 players than normal. But apart from that, it's a pretty familiar series compared to last year. I guess there are 2 changes in this. Sydney and Hamilton have switched round. Now, due to the New Zealand stop of the World Sevens has moved. It was in Wellington last year, where they had pretty poor crowds, and they have had for a couple of years now. And so New Zealand have moved that up to Hamilton instead, and we'll see how things go there. Hopefully I'll be able to get down for that one and maybe be involved a bit. I'm chatting with the Hamilton Tourist Board at the moment. So that'd be good to get involved in that one. Sydney has been a good success. I think it's been going for 3 years now. Oh, this will be its 3rd season. So I say they've switched around the Australia and New Zealand legs, and that'll help Hamilton because you have that week of build-up in Sydney, so to get people energised. And the other gap then is that gap between the Hong Kong and Singapore Sevens. Previously, they have been one after the other. Now, Singapore one, again, it's one of these ones that isn't attended that well. Having lived in Singapore, where it used to be there, and then they had a break, and it came back last year, I think it was, or the year before, I can never see it actually really taking off there and getting the big crowds. Hong Kong has the history. We used to all fly up en masse to Hong Kong for that weekend. It's a big party weekend and massive. And then we have sort of Paris and London. So I say it's pretty much very similar to last year. There are no new stops apart from that move of the New Zealand one and moving it internally. If we look at the ladies, though, so what we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So yeah, they've got 10 stops plus the Commonwealth Games and the Rugby World Cup. Yep, just check my counting there. If we look at the women's one, well, we haven't had an announcement, which is really disappointing. Last year they had 6 stops, so Dubai, and I'm going to really Kitayushu up in Japan, Sydney, Langford in the USA, Las Vegas, and Clermont-Ferrand. I think Langford is the USA, or is it Canada? Actually, sorry, it's probably I will just check that's fully up in Canada actually. So to me, what's really disappointing is you're Dubai, Las Vegas, and those dual stops, or at least the same. Sorry, Dubai, Sydney, Las Vegas, all host men's and ladies. The other ones are just to just host the women's tour. Now, to me, it's really disappointing that countries like New Zealand, South Africa, England, and those tier one nations aren't hosting the women's stops. I think they need to build up the number of stops. I think countries that are having the men's tour should be told if they want to re-sign next time they have to also put on a women's stop as well. That's a personal point of view. I mean, to grow that side of the game, and it's obviously a big side of things. The other thing, obviously, is growing towards that. The Women's Rugby World Cup is at the same time as the men's, and obviously the big thing is growing towards that date at the end of the season. One of the things that World Rugby said was that they were going to drop the Rugby World Cup Sevens when they got into the Olympics, and that clearly hasn't happened. The Olympics was supposed to be the pinnacle. And I think the Olympics still is the pinnacle, so it's going to be a bit of how do people see this Rugby World Cup Sevens. The last one in Russia didn't go so great, but the marketing around this one in San Francisco has been very good. So I'm expecting it to be a big party there. And especially, it's not that far from Las Vegas. They'll be able to, there's a nice gap between that so people can save their pennies and afford perhaps do another trip if they enjoy the Las Vegas ones, and also make it a bit of a big event. So hopefully it'll be successful over there and help with growing the game. So I just wanted to have a quick chat about all of that stuff that's going on in the Sevens now that we know when it's going to happen. Just a quick recap: Dubai and Cape Town kick us off in December. We then go to Sydney and Hamilton in end of January, early February. In March, sees us in Las Vegas and Vancouver. April sees Hong Kong. It's in Hong Kong, the Commonwealth Games, and also then on to Singapore after a week's break. Paris and London round things off before we head to San Francisco for that World Cup, for that Rugby World Cup, where the ladies will be there as well. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll be back tomorrow with my Super Rugby semi-final predictions, and I will try to get as close to 10 o'clock New Zealand time each day with these this week. We'll try and put a bit of a more regular schedule around them. Thanks for joining me, and catch you tomorrow.